everyone! Welcome back to HerStory. This is episode 2. I hope you're all having a great day today because I am having such a nice day today. Today's actually really cold. I don't know why. In my room, it's like really cold. But again, it hasn't been raining. It's been like a week and it hasn't been raining at all. I don't know if it's just in my area, but if you guys know me in real life, please tell me and chat me and tell me if it's actually raining. Okay? But yes, once again, I hope you're all having a good morning, good day, good evening, good night, or whatever you are. I hope you're having a good day. In this episode, we're going to be discussing a little more about you. Again, because this is about girlhood, we're just going to chat a little bit. We're going to talk about a lot of things today, and it's going to be a little bit short. Don't worry, I'm going to make the most of it, okay? So, before we begin, I'd just like to say welcome back to Her Story podcast, hosted by yours truly, Ashya. I am so happy about how the first podcast started, so let's hope this one goes well. In this episode, we're going to be talking and discussing a little bit more about something that's been on my mind recently. I really love the first podcast about identity, but I do think we have to dive a little deeper. I mean, why does an identity crisis like this have to exist in the first place? Where is it all rooted from? Where does it all coexist from? And I think that a lot of this really stems from aesthetics, curated aesthetics, and also the fact that we are breaking girls girl. So in this episode, we're going to be discussing about internalized misogyny and how it affects identity finding. I recently just decided to, go on TikTok because I always do go on TikTok, right? And once again, I came across a video that really opened my eyes. I think it really did. There was a girl who was bringing down another girl for no absolute reason at all, and I do not know why she was bringing down the other girl. But essentially, she was saying that the other girl was a pick me for not liking makeup or not liking video games. And I feel like this is such a turn because a few years ago, those were trending. Being a tomboy, being badass, and being out of the hyper feminine stereotype was trending so much. And all of a sudden, it just dropped. And everyone who decided to oppose the hyper feminine stereotypical trait became a pick me. And if you do not know what pick me means, according to Collins Dictionary, a pick-me is a person who tries to prove they're not like other people but fails to execute it. Essentially, they're a person who loves to bring down other people to praise themselves. And a pick-me girl is a stereotype of a girl who puts down, or women, who puts down obvious effort into seeking approval and attention from men by putting down other women. Now, obviously, this has been a trend for a few years now. Recently, this had been a trend. The tomboy badass girl and opposing the hyper-feminine stereotype back then was also a pick-me girl trend. Girls would say, oh my gosh, I don't wear makeup and I don't wear clothes that are girly, and so I'm like not like other girls. And obviously they were trying to bring down and discreetly trying to bring down girls who are hyper feminine by breaking out of this stereotype and secretly saying that girls who are hyper feminine are bad. They would add on to tweets such as, I'm not in the club just being just trying to get attention from other men. I'm not in the club trying to get attention from other men, but I'm at home drinking my coffee like a normal person. And the comments would be full of men praising them. And now we've switched it around. We've turned internalized misogyny back onto those girls who were picking at hyperfemininity and deciding to make fun of them as well. And this is just so confusing to me because why can't they both just coexist? I have no problem with you being hyper feminine, and I have no problem with a girl deciding to be tomboy. Why can't they just coexist is my thing. And honestly, the idea that everyone's now an anti-pick me girl, making fun of the pick me girls, feels like we're back to square one. We're making fun of the girls. We're bringing down the other girls now. We're back to square one. Okay? This is not how we're supposed to be evolving. We're evolving backwards again. There was a post on, I think it was Kendall Jenner or Kylie Jenner that wanted to try football. She wanted to try no, it was basketball. She wanted to try basketball, right? And so she played basketball and posted it on her Instagram. And a lot of the comments were calling her a pick me girl. Obviously, some of them could be just hateful accounts for no reason, but that really shows how women, despite of anything, will be still called pick me girl. And why? As we read from earlier, a pick me girl, according to Collins Dictionary, is a person who tries to prove they're not like other people but fails to execute it, or according to, and also a stereotype of a girl who puts down other women. I don't think Kendall Jenner was putting down other women by trying to play basketball. Obviously, you can also see from TikToks impersonating, for example, quote unquote, the anti pick me girl who's actually a pick me girl, and then they continue to mock the actual pick me girl, the quote unquote pick me girl. Like, we're back to square one again. You're making fun of a girl. You're making fun of that girl, that poor girl. Like, people assume, oh, I'm so sorry for that. People assume that some anti-pick me girls are inauthentic. Because here's the thing about let's go back to identity. Here's the thing about identity. We don't know what other people are thinking. We don't know how other people can perceive us if they're only in their minds. So we create this authenticity. We create it by seeing how they act on certain parts of life, and therefore we create this image so we can dismiss them for it and feel superior. We're so interdependent on each other. These type of people purposely dismiss and put down other girls. These type of girls purposely put down other women for no reason other than to give themselves a pat on the back that they're not like those girls. That they have this some sort of superiority complex over these other girls. The pick me label has lost all its meaning. Now we have grown ass women making fun of teenage girls for saying they like video games and don't like makeup. I'm so sorry for swearing. I shouldn't have done that. But it just really angers me. It just really, really angers me. Like actual rage. Like I actually have actual rage from this. A lot of this stems from the stereotype that there is a normal woman. If I cannot be hyper feminine, if I cannot be a tomboy, then who am I supposed to be? What is the middle ground? Is there even a middle ground to begin with? Because if there's a middle ground, that means that I have to be able to do both. But if both sides are completely hated, then what is the middle ground? What is the middle ground? I think the biggest problem with both versions of the pick me girl, whether you're quote unquote anti pick me girl or quote unquote pick me girl, is that they both assume that there's a normal girl. There's a normal vision of the girl. Like the hyper feminine, anti pick me girl, I love women, quote unquote anti pick me girl, assumes that, being hyper feminine is the default. And then the pick me girls, the quote unquote pick me girls, they think that being a tomboy is a normal vision of the girl. So what's the middle ground for me? What's the middle ground for you? What's the middle ground for us? There is no correct way to be a woman. And if she does not, and there's no correct way to be a woman. Women act their own individuals. Everyone acts as their own individuals. These people think that there is a default and a correct way for women to be, and when she does not act in the correct way, she is a pick-me. Masculine women, sometimes masculine women, when they see a feminine woman, they say pick me, and then sometimes a feminine woman, when they see a masculine woman, they say pick me. Hypothetical situation, and it literally just feels that we're making excuses to hate on any type of women. We're making excuses to hate on women in general. Like, I'm sorry, but some people just struggle with certain aspects of life. Okay? If Kendall Jenner wants to go play basketball, then go ahead, let her play basketball. There's no problem with women trying on sports. It does not make her a pick me. And all of it is in favor to oppose this stereotype that we're doing it to attract men. Okay, now we're back to square one again about why these stereotypes even exist. Because we want to oppose things that are stereotypical that usually attract men. The first pick me girl trend, the tomboy pick me girl trend, was a way to oppose gender stereotypes by opposing the male gaze. And now, the hyperfeminine trend is also opposing the male gaze by going on the hyperfeminine side. It's all lost in me. The concept of both is that regardless of behaviors or interests, women's behavior is always assumed to attract men, whether you're hyperfeminine or whether you're a tomboy. Because tomboys, they attract men. Hyperfeminine girls, they attract men. Women can't have personalities without it being assumed it is for men. There is nothing wrong to be a pick-me girl. There's nothing wrong to be a hyperfeminine girl. There's nothing wrong to be both. There shouldn't be middle ground because everyone is their own individuals. There is no such thing as just hyperfemininity or a tomboy. There is branches to being a woman. There's branches to everything. We are our own individuals. And this is what also makes it so difficult to find out your own identity because everyone is so cut on being different from others to the point where if there is someone who's if you create this community of people who are different, and when you see someone who's acting like the stereotype, the quote unquote stereotype, the other people, you get angry at them because you want to feel, even though you want to feel different, and that's confusing me. It's so annoying that a term used to point out sexist women is now used to be sexist to women again. Like, we've gone full circle. Being a pick-me isn't a normal term anymore. It's sexist and rude by itself because it's a term that calls out other women. Okay? The pick-me girl is now such a sexist term, and it's not meant to be a sexist term. It was meant to be a term to call out women who are constantly putting down other women, but now it's just a drowned out word, and now people use it to call pick-me on every girl. It's so difficult to just let girls or women exist without assuming that there's an underlying thing going on. And it's difficult. Why can't people just exist? Why can't people just exist? Why can't women just exist? Why can't girls just exist? And this will be so difficult to young girls especially because they don't want to be called pick-me. Young girls are trying to find their identity. Teenage girls through puberty are trying to find their own identity. And once they realize that there's a term called a pick-me girl, they don't want to be that pick-me girl. And therefore they will do anything to avoid that term. And yet, to avoid that term, they have to be taught to make fun of the other side, mock the people who are pick-me girls. This is insane. I do not think that girls and women can't exist anymore normally. So much of pick me girl is based on assumptions. You assume that she's doing this or that because she wants attention of men. It's very one-sided and one-dimensional to assume that all women's intentions and actions are with men in mind. Okay? Women are whole people, and we're still having a hard time remembering that. And it's so difficult to be a woman because of this. It's very difficult. Its pick-me label has lost all its meaning, and now we're using it against other women. If you're a teenage girl and you're wondering, well, then how do I find my own identity? I don't want to be one of these girls who make fun of other women. I don't want to be a woman who puts down other women. I don't want to be a person who puts down other person. I want a world where everyone is just at peace. And obviously, I can't give you an answer to that last one because the world it's difficult to have everything at peace. And it's difficult to have everyone just coexist. If you want to learn how to find your own identity, you have to first optimize the people around you. If people around you are being too toxic, avoid yourself from that environment. Slowly distance yourself. It will be much easier on you. If people around you are constantly teasing for small things, avoid them. If you want to know more about how to find your own identity, you can go back to my episode 1 of finding yourself and finding your identity, because in that video I made a lot of clear statements and a lot of clear directions on how to find your own identity. Anyway, this is more of a little rant post on how I think of just internalized misogyny in general. I do think that the trend of the pick me girl and the anti pick me girl are both dehumanizing and sexist to women on both sides. I hope that I hope that this video really goes well, because I just wanted to talk about this topic for so long, and I'm so happy that I finally got it out. It's so frustrating to be a woman, because no matter what, there will always be people coming for you left and right, whether women or men. You can't just exist, and it's really difficult. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast today, and I hope this really is it's a really dark rant. It's not dark, but it's kind of sad, and I really do hope that um that just one day I'll wake up and see TikTok just noticing all these patterns of women being sexist, and decide, hey, let's not be sexist towards other women and just coexist, which will be a little bit difficult, but I do think that it can happen. I do think one day it can happen. I hope it does. Amen. Thank you once again for listening to my podcast. Thank you once again. And that is the end of episode 2 of HerStory. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and I hope you have a good night. I hope you have a good day, good morning, good evening, good night. Bye bye. By yours truly, Ashya.